Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This is Myleek, and today I am thrilled to have a special guest with us, someone whose work has been transformative for so many. Today we are going to dive into the journey of self-healing, self-discovery, and the importance of trusting our inner guide with none other than Yasmine Cheyenne. Yasmine is the author of the powerful new book, Wisdom of the Path, the Beautiful and Bumpy Ride to Healing and Trusting Our Inner Guide. This book is exactly what I need right now, and I just get the feeling many of you will feel the same. In our conversation, we are going to explore what it means to start your day with intention. Have you ever heard that? You've got to be intentional. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the importance of choosing yourself even when it feels lonely. The healing journey once you start, I know loneliness is something that has come up time and time again. And so we're going to talk about that. And we're just going to talk about how to embrace the wisdom that you stand to gain from some of your life's toughest lessons. Yasmine's insights are as practical as they are profound, and I just can't wait for you all to hear her story. So without further ado, let's dive into this incredible conversation I had with Yasmine Cheyenne. Alrighty, I am very excited to have you here today, Yasmine Cheyenne, author. I have your latest book in my hands, Wisdom of the Path, the Beautiful and Bumpy Ride to Healing and Trusting Our Inner Guide. This sounds like everything I need at this moment. And so before we get into the why, let's just talk about your favorite way to start your day. We need to know. What's your way?
Do you know something I've been doing lately? I've been using this copper cup from this company called Ronavad, and I charge it, so to speak, with water for like 6 to 8 hours in the evening, and then I drink it first thing in the morning. Okay. And it's like, that made it sound a little extra, but I love it.
Honey, we are here for all the extra. What made you decide to start doing that? And I need the name of that because I want to try that. Like, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, so copper is an anti-inflammatory. It helps with, it has antioxidants, and it's a really old Indian that they use to basically like a normal point of health. The way that somebody might take a supplement, they drink out of copper. And so I was like, anti-inflammatory, with these knees, like I'm here for it. I'm here.
Yes. I need all things anti-inflammatory. So let's talk about this book. How did you get, after writing Sugar Jar, how did you get to writing Wisdom of the Path?
Yeah. So I was actually the Sugar Jar hadn't come out yet. And I started writing this chapter of the book that was answering the questions that I thought people would have. Because you set your boundaries and then your relationships end, and then your job, you got to change your job. Like everything comes to a halt.
Yes.
So I was writing like an answer to that. And I was like, this is a whole other book. And that became Wisdom of the Path.
Okay. So tell me about this. As people are sort of like, they have their boundaries, they realize they're not at the right job, maybe they're not in the right relationship. What did you discover kind of happened?
I think it is incredibly lonely. I don't think people are prepared. I know I definitely wasn't prepared for the loneliness that came with choosing myself. Ooh. And the loneliness that came with not betraying myself anymore. And it just felt like it didn't feel like a win. And
That's
so
real.
I think,
that's say more. It didn't feel like a win.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think, okay, I'm choosing myself, I'm setting the boundaries, so people are going to just show up for me now, or people are going to respect me, or my job's going to pay me now, or my partner's going to propose. Like, it's just going to work out. And it's like, sometimes it's, no, this actually is going to end, or you're going to have to choose something different, or you're going to have to walk away from that. And I have not met anyone who doesn't have that kind of lonely point in the healing journey of, especially initially, when you first get into it and you really realize oh, I've been holding on and stringing these relationships along. If I let go, if I just let my hand go, they'd
Yeah.
all go away. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's lonely.
Hmm.
So, talk us through, some of the main themes of this book that you go over after people sort of experience this loneliness. This is such a real and necessary book. I'm just thinking that of like, that's so real. Once you choose yourself, it's like what is it that Fresh Prince thing where you're just in the house by yourself.
Yeah.
that's that's what I thought of when you said that. So talk us
Hmm.
through, what are some of the main themes in this book?
So the first part, I wrote the book in parts, and the first part of the book is where you've been. And for me, when I started my healing journey, three major things happened. One, I was a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
I was dealing with financial changes. Two, I was in grief. I had lost my grandmother, and who was basically a parent to me, and that was like, I write in the book, it was like the gravity, like there was no longer any gravity. That's what it felt like.
Mm,
I was just floating through life.
wow.
And so I think that, my grandmother used to always say this too, like when it rains, it pours, but like truly,
Mm-hmm.
when we start to make those shifts in our lives, I think it starts to feel like it's raining everywhere. And chapter 2 is actually called "Every Storm Runs Out of Rain" for that reason, because I
Okay.
feel like we need a reminder that it's not always going to be this heavy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's part one. Part two
Mm-hmm.
goes into how we can begin to be present to the joy that we can create now that we've gotten rid of a lot of the things that were draining us, or now that we've moved past the grief into, and not like over the grief, but moved back into living. Because
Yeah.
grief can make you feel like you just stepped out of life, as you know, I'm sure. Like
Yeah.
life isn't just happening around you and you're just watching it,
Yeah.
but you're not in it.
Yeah.
Um, and then chapter 3 is about where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
I know we always like to think about the future in terms of like goals, and I love to plan,
Yeah.
but I wanted to talk about some of the things that I did for myself, like going on a concert, a solo trip, things that I had always
Yeah.
thought would happen one day, but maybe I wouldn't actually sit down and do it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
grief actually helped me
For sure.
get back into living and realizing like you time is limited, not in a morbid way, but
In a
time is
very, yeah.
real
And
way.
yeah. In just reality, we don't have
Hmm.
endless time.
Right.
Okay.
So if you want to do something, do it, but also exploring the ways in which I didn't honestly believe maybe I deserved it, or I was afraid of what people might say if I did it, especially as a mom of two. Like, you really just
Wow.
gonna take a week off and go on a solo trip? You know,
Yes.
and yes, I did, but like it was like, okay, well, all of the things that get in the way of us
Yep.
being ourselves and doing what we really want to be doing? And it sounds
Yeah.
very like this is low hanging fruit, but like the trip is not, this isn't about the trip. It's about the steps that I had to take to believe that I was even worthy of the trip, deserving of the trip,
Right.
deserving of the life I want, whatever it is. It may not be a trip for you, it may be something else, but what is
Mm-hmm.
in the way of you actually saying yes to those things for yourself?
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. And then tell us more. Is
And
that
then I think also, I want to just be clear that wisdom of the path is not about me sharing wisdom for you to gain from me. Wisdom of
right?
the path is about us leaning on the wisdom that we already innately have, that maybe we don't lean on because instead of looking at it as wisdom, we judge ourselves. I can't believe you chose that partner.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe you made that decision. I can't believe you went, you know, on that journey. I can't believe that. We are sometimes our worst enemies.
Mm.
And if we looked at that relationship as a piece of wisdom, if we looked at it as a lesson, if we looked at it as something to be gained, then I think we would have a way better toolbox of things to lean on when tough times arrive. I quote you in the book,
Do you?
something that you say about comparison and even the ways that we look at people online.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that what they have is what we desire, and how it keeps us from being able to focus on what we really want and create it for ourselves. And so I just
Yeah.
think the themes in the book are an opportunity for us to begin to uncover what is holding me back. What am I allowing to be a limit to what I desire? How
Mm-hmm.
can I begin to allow this feeling of loneliness, this burdensome, whatever it is that came up when I was healing, to not be a barrier, but to
Mm-hmm.
catapult me towards what I really want in my life?
Yeah, something before we keep going, is like, I posted on my threads a couple of days ago about how it's easier to trust the process when
Mm-hmm.
the process is rooted in your truth. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I think so many people have a really hard time. It's like, okay, I'm supposed to just show up to this. And it's like, yeah, it's a little bit, you're not falling for it because it's not your thing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and your thing may seem silly to others, or it's never been done before. Um, or it's not popular. And so that's just something I've been thinking about lately, is like, there's there was some conversation in my online community about, you know, buying a house,
Mm-hmm.
being pregnant with a child, and just not being excited. Like, these are all the things
Mm-hmm.
I wanted and worked for. And I think it's like that feeling, which I think about what you're saying in terms of like loneliness, but that feeling, which is kind of like an ache to me, is the best way to explain it. To me, that ache is an invitation, or your call
Mm-hmm.
to really be honest with yourself about what it is you really want outside of societal expectations, right? I think so many of us, especially as women, were sold these fantasies or these ideas. Like, even this idea that you're like, I really need to think about taking a week off because I'm a mom of two. Like, nobody needs a week off more than a mom. Facts. Nobody needs a week off more than a mom of two, you know? And so I feel like if you have that sense of loneliness, or that ache that comes from, I love that you said just like the difference between goals and then
Mm-hmm.
this idea of like creating a vision or something for your life. And so, okay, we will keep going. Something that I love about your work is your ability to share your personal stories, which I
Mm-hmm.
think are super important. So, is there any particular story in this book that you share that stands out to you? Something that you can't believe you shared, or, you know, or something that people have said really resonated with them?
I think the first story in the book is the one that everyone has talked about the most, the
Tell us about it.
$500 story.
Okay.
That's what it's been coined. I think um, I was a single mom,
Mm-hmm.
and I had did all the planning and the financial planning, but I did not really understand the cost, meaning the time that it would take
Okay.
me to do all of the things that you have to do to take care of a child by yourself.
Yeah.
And so I was raking up these late fees at my daughter's daycare, to the point where it was like causing me financial stress, because it was like, it's like, if you're late, it's $75, and then it's $50 every 5 minutes, and it
Oh
was wild.
gosh.
And so I was walking home from work. I knew, like, I was struggling. Like, I was eating like peanut butter and crackers for dinner, just to keep
Wow.
her life as normal as possible and keep
Right.
everything as normal as possible. And I was like, it would be great to, have this shift. And I looked down on the floor, and there was $500 on the floor.
Stop it.
Literally. I can
Okay.
still, like, and it was back in the day. So, like, I didn't think it was like a TikTok or anything. Like, back when you
Okay.
could find money on the floor and, like,
Right,
it's
because people
yours.
carried cash because
Right.
everybody didn't have Apple Pay or
Right.
debits and all that. Okay.
Right. So I picked it up, and then it's like the money hit my hand, and I knew it wasn't my money immediately. And I looked around, and there was like this older gentleman, and he had stuff all out of his car. He's patting his pockets. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, this is this man's money.
Yeah.
And within 20 seconds, like, I walked over, handed him the money, and I just broke down. And I think for me, it was a moment of, girl, why you give that man your blessing? Like, there
Fact.
was that.
Yeah.
And then there was also, why am I struggling alone? Like, I don't have a community. That was the
Ooh. That's what
minute.
when you handed it back, it was like, okay,
Yes.
it was like first story and then it was like true story, like
Yes.
fiction. And now let's get into the facts. And so
Yes.
that's what it said. Okay. And so big idea after that, what happened or
I
what,
get home, I do the same thing that I always do, like change to go pick her up. And then but instead of getting in the car and pretending everything was okay, I call my best friend. And she's
mm-hmm,
like, girl, I'll send you the money. Like,
mm-hmm,
and it
mm-hmm.
was this moment of, I had so much shame around my
Yeah.
struggling, around my suffering, around divorce, around not having it all figured out, that I was really suffering through. And like, and to be clear, and I talk about this in the book, her giving me that money didn't solve all my problems, right?
Right.
But what it did was it let me know that I didn't have to do this alone.
Yes.
And it reminded me that I could get through this by leaning on people that I could trust, the community I had cultivated, and allowing them to show up for me. And so I think that's the story that stands out the most, because everybody can relate to being in a place, even if it's not financial, being in a place where you just felt like no one could relate and that you were in this by yourself and you really believed the story you were telling yourself, that you were doing it alone. And it's such a powerful moment when you realize that sometimes it's you keeping you by yourself.
Yeah. So I feel like something that I've witnessed you doing from my like I think the beauty of me having these kids is it slowed me down and I can like see
Mm-hmm.
people on social media and I feel like you take your self-development serious. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I
Yeah.
really do.
So tell me just why is self-development important to you? And what does it mean?
Yeah. So when I look at my relationships, and it's so funny because if any friend of mine or anyone that knew me was listening, they'd be like, oh my God, she takes it incredibly serious. Please help us.
Yes.
Um, but when I look at my relationships, I'm always thinking, how can I show up better? And not in a perfectionist way, but in a really self aware way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I grew up in a kind of culture where it was always somebody else causing me to be the way that I am
Okay.
versus m- me taking accountability and responsibility for the way that I am also participating in this.
Yes.
And I think that that is the power position. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we are in our power when we are able to see how we are showing up. It's the only thing that we can choose. And so
Ooh.
self development for me is that it's,
Mm-hmm.
how am I leaning into where I actually have the control, not for perfectionist's sake, not for control's sake, but from a place of, okay, if this isn't working out, I can leave. Okay, if they don't like the comments, I can stop making them. If they need me to be there for them, then I can do this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what role am I playing? Because it's so easy to say this is what everyone else is doing, but I don't really think we get the growth that we are seeking in our lives, in our professional relationships, in our romantic relationships, until we're able to really look at ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just seen how my life has changed from being able to be honest when I'm the problem.
Mm.
And I think that that's a part of self development or self healing, or that I don't think we talk about, is like always the other person. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's it is sometimes the other person. And why
And
it always comes back to you. Okay, if it's the other
yeah.
person, why are they still here? Okay, if it's the other
Right.
person, like, how is this you?
How is this you? Right. So I think how have you managed to stay motivated and consistent on this journey? Because I feel like I see it's ever evolving. You seem enthusiastic. How have you done this?
Curiosity. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that is what I like. Any book that I write or any work that I teach, that is what I hope the people that I teach take away. If
Okay.
you're curious, I do believe this, like, and I've been saying this, but curiosity is the birthplace of our freedom. When we
Ooh.
are curious, we're able to actually free ourselves from the stories, from the burdens, from all of the things that we've been carrying that are not real.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through curiosity that we don't stay stuck in the web of stories that we've
Yeah.
created.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness. I feel like we could go on. What do you think are some of the common challenges people face in their self-development journey? I feel like self-development is step one of all the things, you know,
Yes.
or self-awareness followed by self-development.
Mm-hmm.
But where do you see people in teaching? Where do people typically get caught up?
I think the biggest place that people get caught up is that not everybody wants to come with you on this journey. Like, I think you think it just, I'm making decisions to improve my life.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you'd want to make decisions to improve your life too.
Right.
And they don't want to, or they think that their life is great, or,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that begins to introduce us or invite us into the idea that, um, of loving people for where they want to be and for who they are versus
Yeah.
where you think they should be and who they are. And it puts us back into the seat of, oh, this is not my job. And actually my job is to look at myself. So I think that starts that cycle. I think automatically when we start healing, we start thinking about, oh, I really got to get my mom this book. I really got to get my friend
Yes.
really needs this. And it's
Right.
like, sis, what about you? Like, you know,
Yeah.
how are you now projecting this onto
Ooh.
everyone in your circle when this journey was
Yes.
supposed to be about you?
Yeah. Ooh. So you're busy. You're a mom of
Mm-hmm.
two. How do you prioritize your work, your development with your daily life responsibilities? Because I can see and I feel like I hear people feeling like this feels woo woo. It feels like who has time for this? I mean, just the idea, the intentionality of charging water in a cup, you know, which I'm going to get, by the way. You know what I mean? It's like, and I only say this because I feel like there were times in my life where I just couldn't receive a lot of
Yeah.
this. Like, are you kidding me? I got two kids. I'm supposed to be charging my cup. I'm supposed to be doing this. But these daily life responsibilities, is there anything you feel like you do to make sure you are, you know, consistently on the journey?
I mean, it is I live it in everything that I do. So like just to be clear, I'm married. I have a partner who has
Mm-hmm.
never done half of this work. I so I don't want
Right.
y'all thinking like I live a woo-woo life and everyone in my life is healed and like everything is like
Right.
no, right?
Okay.
So I have a
Yeah.
normal life just like y'all. But I think that I try to show up with the commitments that I've made to myself. And I think even with my kids, like the other day, there was a situation that happened with my daughter and her friends, and I'm doing her hair. She's talking to me about it, and she's like, and I said, well, how do you know that she's going to change, like the person that she's talking about? And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, if her actions don't change, then I know that she's not going to change. And when I heard her say that, and she's going to be 14 this month in
Mm-hmm.
August, but I was like, oh, so in me showing up with my kids and using this language and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just being myself and saying what has helped me and not pushing it. She
Mm-hmm.
has absorbed it and I see it showing up in my life naturally, in my family. And I think that's what motivates me. When I see
Yeah.
the people around me, um, improving, because of course in the work that I do is also a motivator. And when I see my clients actually have improvements, but they've already bought in. When I
Mm-hmm.
see the people around me that I'm just Yasmine and they don't care
Yeah.
about what I post, you know, none of that
Right.
is a factor. That is when I really remember the importance of this work and how it can change the way that you show up in your life and your relationships. That keeps me committed
Okay.
to what I do.
One of my favorite mysterious words is mindfulness. And
Mm-hmm.
how does mindfulness play a role in this journey? And what does it mean to you?
Can I tell you, I've been thinking about this lately, especially with everything happening in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think mindfulness is something that specifically Black women have been stripped of.
Mm.
And I feel like we need to reclaim that.
Yep.
Um, I grew up watching my mom do 50, 11 things at one time.
Yeah.
I don't think mindfulness was something that we were given an opportunity to have. And this may be all women, but I can only speak
Right.
from my view. And so like I approach mindfulness that way. Like I am taking this back.
Yeah.
When I go on a walk, I just want to be going on the walk.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing dishes, I just want to be
Yes.
doing my dishes.
Yep.
And I try to make mindfulness something that isn't something I have to schedule in. It's whatever I'm doing right now in this moment, and I don't have to do anything else while I'm doing it. And I know
Mm.
that that's hard because we all have so many things going on, but I just invite us to get curious about how we can slow down a little bit more in our lives and not be everything to everyone and be doing everything at the same time. I do think that that is what mindfulness really allows us to do. It's about presence.
Yeah.
And it's not about the absence of noise. It's about being able to be where you are in the midst of the noise and the chaos and all of the things. And I think we need that right now more than ever, especially Black women.
Yes. Okay. As we get ready to wrap up, what I do want to ask you about is like, what does your mental health maintenance look like? I know we love a
Mm-hmm.
good hair and nail situation, but maintenance.
Yes. So for me, I think it's definitely hiking.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be outside. I like to go for walks. I like to hike. I also really love to, I'm trying to think which one I want to name because I have a long list of mental
Okay.
health maintenance. I'll just name
Okay.
them all. It's
Yeah.
hiking. It's when I get my hair done. It's when I'm listening to a podcast, like a ridiculous podcast. Like none of my podcasts are healing. All of them are ratchet and raggedy. I like to like a
Okay.
good laugh.
Yes.
Um, the other day I was watching a reel of somebody talking about using dot 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 after statements like "stay safe." And how it implies, the
Yeah.
app, like those are my mental health maintenance
Okay.
things. I like
I
to
love
be in
that.
joy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Super important. Okay. So, what, I guess before we get out of here, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Oh man. Some of the stuff your mom is saying is right.
Okay. Really?
Listen, no, you
Yeah.
know, when she said somebody wasn't my friend, she was right. When she said that
Mm-hmm.
I would probably shouldn't be dating that person, she was right. When she told me to
Yeah.
focus on school, she was right. There are that like if I could have taken the meat and left the bones, I didn't have the tools for
Yeah.
that.
Right. The
But
delivery was off. It was
the
just,
yes,
yeah, like
yes.
mom had a point.
There were points behind yes.
Yes. Okay. Final message for those listening and all the things you have going on and where we can find you.
Yeah, so I just hope that this book and any of the work that you read in terms of self development, self healing, becomes something that doesn't cause you to blame yourself. It's an invitation to learn more and to get curious. And if you're interested in doing that with me, you can find my work on Instagram at Yasmine Cheyenne, and all of my books, The Wisdom of the Path and The Sugar Jar, are sold everywhere books are sold.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time today. And we
Thank
will
you
be
for
keeping
having
up with
me.
you, of course. Everybody, Wisdom of the Path, the beautiful and bumpy ride to healing and trusting our inner guide. We all need that.
Thank you.